Professor Edmund Blackwell's voice cut through the seminar room like a blade. "Plagiarism," he announced, holding up my research paper. "That's what we're looking at here. Academic theft." 20 graduate students sat frozen around the table. This was advanced architectural theory at Caldwell Institute, the most prestigious seminar, led by the most feared professor, and he'd just accused me of plagiarism in front of everyone. "Miss Sterling," Professor Blackwell continued, his steel-gray eyes fixed on me, "your paper on sustainable Gothic revival techniques demonstrates knowledge someone at your level couldn't possess. The depth of understanding, the historical references, the sophisticated analysis." He set the paper down deliberately. "Either you're a hidden genius, or you've stolen this work from someone far more qualified." My throat tightened. 6 months researching that paper. 6 months in archives. It was original work. My work. "Professor, every source is cited." "Citations don't prove authorship," he interrupted. "This is a research paper published 28 years ago by Dr. Julian Whitmore. Your work bears striking similarities to his methodology, his framework, even his specific arguments." My heart hammered. I've never heard of Julian Whitmore. Convenient. Since Dr. Whitmore died 15 years ago, he can't verify whether you accessed his unpublished manuscripts. The room was silent, every eye on me. "I didn't plagiarize anything," I said. "Every idea is mine." "Then explain this." He opened both papers side by side. "Your section on flying buttresses with modern materials. Whitmore's paper proposes nearly identical integration methods. Because the engineering principles are sound. You expect me to believe a graduate student independently developed the same approach as one of the field's most brilliant minds." His eyebrow arched. "That you happen to reach conclusions that took Whitmore 20 years to formulate." He closed both documents. "I'm recommending your expulsion pending formal investigation. You'll be notified within 7 days." This is insane. I won't have my seminar's reputation damaged by students who steal their way to degrees. He gestured toward the door. "You're dismissed." I grabbed my bag with shaking hands, stuffing papers inside. Every eye followed me to the exit. At the door, I turned back. "I didn't plagiarize Dr. Whitmore's work." "Then you should be able to prove that," Professor Blackwell said dismissively. 7 days, Miss Sterling." I left and didn't stop until I was alone in the library archives, breath coming in ragged gasps. I pulled out my laptop and searched. Julian Whitmore, architectural historian. Dr. Julian Whitmore. Renowned historian specializing in Gothic revival. Published extensively in the 1980s and 90s. Died in 2010, leaving substantial unpublished research. Research that apparently predicted every argument in my paper. But I'd never seen his work. Never heard his name. Unless a memory surfaced. My father's study. The summer I was 12. Watching him work on architectural drawings and research papers. "What are you working on, Dad?" "Something important, sweetheart. Something that might change how we think about buildings." My father, Dr. Daniel Sterling, also an architectural historian, also specializing in Gothic revival, who died 14 years ago when I was 15. Who might have known Whitmore? I opened my bag to review my paper with fresh eyes, and saw it. A small envelope I didn't remember putting there. Old paper, sealed with red wax. On the back, my father's handwriting. "To whoever follows the path, truth is preserved in symbols, not words." I broke the seal. Inside, a drawing. An intricate symbol. A compass rose overlaid with blueprint fragment, surrounded by Latin text. And beneath it, coordinates. I knew those coordinates, the old library, abandoned 20 years ago. My father had left a message, hidden in my research, waiting for this moment. A message suggesting he'd known someone would accuse me of plagiarism. I looked at the wax seal more carefully. Pressed into it, the same compass rose symbol. And I remembered. My father's study, a wooden box sealed with red wax bearing that symbol. "What's in the box?" I'd asked. "The truth, for when the truth is needed." Professor Blackwell thought I'd plagiarized Whitmore's work. But what if the truth was more complicated? What if both my father and Whitmore had been part of something larger? I had 7 days to prove my innocence, and proof was waiting in an abandoned building. My father died when I was 15 in a car accident. Dr. Daniel Sterling had been a respected architectural historian at Caldwell, specializing in Gothic revival and sustainable techniques. The accident happened on a rainy November night. Police said he lost control. Single vehicle. No witnesses. Just tragedy that left his research unfinished. Or so I'd believed. Now, with his hidden message, I wondered what else wasn't true. I searched university archives for my father's publications, found dozens of papers on Gothic architecture, nothing matching my specific arguments. Then I searched for Whitmore's work, found his published articles easily. I expanded the search. Julian Whitmore, Daniel Sterling. 2 results, both from the International Symposium on Gothic Revival Architecture at Oxford, 1996. They'd presented on the same panel, Dr. Julian Whitmore. Structural Innovation in 19th Century Gothic Design, Dr. Daniel Sterling. Sustainable Integration of Historical Techniques. They'd known each other, worked in the same field. Had they collaborated? I needed answers. I went to see Professor Margaret Chen, my father's closest colleague. Professor Chen answered the door surprised. "Evelyn, is everything all right? I need to ask about my father, about his research, and Julian Whitmore." Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. "Come in." I told her everything. The plagiarism accusation, the similarities, my father's hidden message. When I finished, Professor Chen was quiet. "Your father knew this would happen eventually," she said finally. "He tried to protect you." "What truths?" She pulled out a leather-bound journal, opened it to show me the first page. A symbol. The same compass rose from my father's envelope. "This is the mark of the Architects Guild," Professor Chen said. "A secret society formed in the 1970s by architectural historians who believed the field was losing the connection between historical wisdom and future innovation." My heart raced. My father was part of this? Founding member, along with Julian Whitmore and 5 others. She showed me photographs. 7 people in front of a Gothic cathedral, all wearing pins with the compass rose. My father, younger, Whitmore beside him. They worked together for 20 years, pooled research, shared discoveries, developed theories collaboratively. The guild believed knowledge should be collective, not competitive. So my father and Whitmore developed the same theories because they worked together. Exactly. The research Blackwell claims you plagiarized was collaborative work. Your father contributed as much as Whitmore. Maybe more. She looked at me intently. But the guild was secret. They published individually to reach wider audiences without revealing their connection. Why the secrecy? Academic institutions fear secret societies. The guild believed truth mattered more than individual recognition. But that made them vulnerable to plagiarism accusations. Exactly what's happening to you. Did my father leave documentation? Everything. She pulled out a key. In the old library, the abandoned building, your father arranged for one section to remain sealed, where the guild stored their archive. She pressed the key into my palm. Inside, you'll find proof your work isn't plagiarism. It's legacy. You're continuing his research. Why didn't you tell me before? Your father made me promise not to. He wanted you to discover it naturally, when you were ready. Her expression softened. He would be proud of you. Professor Blackwell, does he know about the guild? Professor Chen's face hardened. Edmund Blackwell applied to join in 1998. He was rejected. Not because his scholarship wasn't excellent, but because he didn't understand collective knowledge. He wanted recognition, prestige, glory, everything the guild stood against. So this is revenge. The timing is suspicious. He waited until you produced work echoing guild research. She leaned forward. Go to the old library. Find your father's archive. Prove your work is inheritance, not theft. The old library stood at campus edge, separated by overgrown grounds. Gothic revival architecture with boarded windows and chain-link fence. I waited until midnight. The fence was easy to climb. The coordinates led me to the east side, to a service entrance hidden by ivy. The door was modern. New lock, reinforced frame. Maintained. Professor Chen's key fit perfectly. Inside was dark but structurally sound. I found basement stairs behind the circulation desk, descended carefully. At the bottom, another door, another lock. Same key. This room was climate-controlled. Filing cabinets, bookshelves, large table covered with protected documents, and on the far wall, the compass rose symbol, the mark of the Architects Guild. I was in their secret archive. I moved to filing cabinets. Found my father's section easily. Dozens of folders with research notes, correspondence, collaborative drafts. And found a folder labeled, Evelyn for when you're ready. Inside, a letter in my father's handwriting. My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, you've discovered the guild, and you've been accused of stealing work that others claim you couldn't create. Know this, your research is legitimate. The ideas are yours, but also mine, Julian's, and the guild's. We worked on these theories for 2 decades. We proved them. We documented them. The guild believed the greatest innovations come from synthesis across time, understanding what worked in the past and reimagining it for the future. You reach the same conclusions because you ask the right questions. That's not plagiarism. That's continuing a tradition. In this archive, you'll find everything to prove your work is legitimate. Meeting notes, collaborative research, correspondence proving theories Whitmore published were developed by all of us. But you'll also find something we never published. Something so significant we kept it secret until the right person was ready. Look for the sealed container with my name. Inside, Project Cornerstone. Plans for a building integrating everything the guild learned. A cathedral revolutionizing architecture. We never built it because the world wasn't ready, because the industry would fight it. But you, Evelyn, you're ready. Build what we couldn't. Prove what we theorized. I love you. I'm proud of you. Always, Dad. I sat there crying, holding my father's final message. He'd known I would follow this path. Known I would face opposition. Prepared everything. I found the sealed container. Inside, blueprints, calculations, specifications, a Gothic cathedral using modern, sustainable techniques, flying buttresses with solar collection, stone walls with geothermal systems, ancient and futuristic simultaneously. The research that got me accused was just theory. This was proof. I spent 3 days photographing everything. Guild meeting notes, correspondence showing shared development, my father's files demonstrating his contributions, and Project Cornerstone's complete specifications. On the 4th day, I received notice of my hearing. Monday, 5 days away. Professor Blackwell expected me empty-handed. He had no idea what I'd found, but I couldn't just present the archive. The surviving guild members deserved to know their secret society was about to be exposed. Professor Chen gave me contact information for 3 survivors. I reached out, explaining, asking permission. 2 responded immediately. It was time. If revealing their work could protect Daniel Sterling's daughter, it was worth exposure. The 3rd, Dr. Helena Vasquez, called directly. Your father saved my career once, she said. 20 years ago, I faced similar accusations. The Guild's archive proved my innocence. Now it's our turn. Thank you. You need to understand what you're facing. Edmund Blackwell has built influence over 15 years. He controls publications, positions, funding. Exposing the Guild threatens that. Because it proves collaboration is more valuable than individual genius. Exactly. He'll fight to prevent that. She paused. But the Guild never fully disbanded. We've been waiting for someone to carry forward what your father started. Project Cornerstone. Proving Gothic revival can revolutionize sustainable architecture. If you're willing to fight, you won't fight alone. I'm willing. But why didn't my father build it himself? Long silence. Because the construction industry fought it. Every contractor refused. Every funding source rejected it. Too radical, too unprecedented. Like Blackwell called my research plagiarism. When you threaten established interests, they destroy you however they can. Your father was gathering support. And then he died. The accident. Was it actually an accident? The investigation concluded it was. But your father received threats. Anonymous letters warning him to abandon Project Cornerstone. Helena's voice dropped. I can't prove anything. But I've always wondered. My blood ran cold. You think someone killed him? I think powerful people wanted that project stopped. I think his death was convenient. She paused. But dwelling on it won't help. What helps is winning this hearing. Then deciding if you're brave enough to finish what he started. I'm going to build it, I said. Exactly as he designed it. Helena laughed. You are your father's daughter. I'll be at the hearing. So will the others. We'll testify. We'll prove you didn't plagiarize. You inherited. The hearing was in the administration building. Sterile. Formal. Intimidating. 5 faculty panelists. Dean Morrison as chair. Professor Blackwell as accuser. Professor Chen beside me as advisor. And behind me, 3 elderly scholars. Helena Vasquez. Marcus Webb. Sarah Okonjo. The Guild, present publicly for the first time in 25 years. Dean Morrison called order. Miss Sterling, you've been accused of plagiarizing Dr. Whitmore's research. Professor Blackwell, present your evidence. Blackwell laid out his case systematically. The similarities, the improbability, the suspicious depth of knowledge. Thorough, damning, convincing. Miss Sterling, how do you respond? I stood, pulled out my laptop. May I present evidence? Proceed. I projected the Guild symbol. This is the mark of the Architects Guild, formed in 1975 by 7 historians and designers. My father was a founding member. So was Dr. Whitmore. Professor Blackwell's face went rigid. I showed Guild meetings, collaborative notes, correspondence sharing theories. The research Blackwell claims I plagiarized was never solely Whitmore's. It was developed collaboratively by the entire Guild over 20 years. Whitmore published portions under his name. My father published others. But the research was collective. I showed my father's letter. When he died, he left documentation anticipating someone, probably me, would be accused of plagiarism for continuing his research. This is ridiculous, Blackwell interrupted. A secret society? You're inventing fantasy to excuse theft. I can verify everything. Helena Vasquez stood. Dr. Helena Vasquez, Guild member. Everything Miss Sterling presented is accurate. The research was collaborative. Her father was one of its most significant contributors. Marcus Webb stood. Marcus Webb, also Guild, confirming this testimony. Sarah Okonjo stood. Sarah Okonjo, also Guild. Miss Sterling's research isn't plagiarism. It's continuing her father's life work. The room erupted. Dean Morrison banged his gavel. What's irregular, I said firmly, is accusing someone without understanding collaborative research. My father and Whitmore weren't competitors. They were partners sharing knowledge to advance the field. I looked at Blackwell. You rejected that philosophy, applied to the Guild in 1998, and were denied because you couldn't accept that knowledge matters more than recognition. So you've built reputation on solitary genius. And my work, proving collaboration produces better results, threatens everything you've built. Blackwell went white with fury. You have no proof. I have the Guild's complete archive, 20 years of documentation, and I have this. I spread Project Cornerstone blueprints across the table. A cathedral design integrating Gothic techniques with modern sustainability. The practical application of Guild research. My father designed this 15 years ago, died before building it. I looked at the panel. My paper wasn't plagiarism. It was theoretical foundation for completing my father's work, for building what he only designed. Dean Morrison studied the blueprints. These are extraordinary. They're impossible, Blackwell said. Elaborate and unfeasible. Then let me prove otherwise, I said. Give me permission to build Project Cornerstone as my dissertation. Let me prove my research, and my father's, isn't just theoretical. Silence. Miss Sterling, Dean Morrison said slowly, if you fail, if this proves unsound, it will confirm Blackwell's accusations. I understand, and I won't fail. This is absurd, Blackwell protested. I'm going to let a student prove her research through practical application, Dean Morrison interrupted, which is what architecture is about. He looked at other panelists. All in favor of dismissing charges pending Miss Sterling's successful completion of Project Cornerstone? 5 hands rose. Motion carries. You have 1 year, Miss Sterling. Full documentation and successful construction. If you succeed, your degree with honors. If you fail, charges reinstated. He banged the gavel. Adjourned. Building Project Cornerstone should have been impossible. Too ambitious. Too expensive. Too radical. But the Guild's network activated. Helena had sustainable construction contacts. Marcus knew risk-taking engineers. Sarah had relationships with experimental material suppliers. Within weeks, I had a team. Within a month, funding, grants, donations from Guild alumni waiting decades for this. Within 3 months, we broke ground on a university-donated site. But Professor Blackwell didn't disappear quietly. He published a scathing editorial arguing my project was dangerous experimentation. He contacted inspectors raising compliance concerns. He warned construction firms about liability. He was trying to destroy the project before it could prove him wrong. He's terrified, Helena told me during a site visit. She'd taken sabbatical to consult. Terrified your success proves everything he's built his reputation on is wrong. Can he stop us? He can try. But he doesn't have what we have. Community, collaborative knowledge, decades of research he never accessed. Still, Blackwell's campaign took toll. 3 contractors quit. 2 suppliers backed out. Inspectors showed up weekly. We adapted. Found new contractors. Sourced materials differently. Addressed every concern meticulously. But 6 months in, Blackwell played his final card. An anonymous letter to the university president claimed Project Cornerstone's design was fundamentally flawed and would collapse catastrophically. The letter included technical analysis, sophisticated, detailed, convincing. The university immediately halted construction pending independent safety review. He faked it, I told Helena. This isn't real engineering review. It's designed to sound authoritative. Can you prove it's fake? Not easily. And we'll lose months. I stared at blueprints. My father's design being destroyed by the same forces that destroyed him. There has to be something, Helena said. I looked at the blueprints more carefully. Noticed small marks at structural points, not architectural notations, symbols, tiny compass roses. He encoded proof into the blueprints. I said slowly. My father knew someone would challenge structural integrity. He embedded verification into the design. I photographed each symbol, opened Guild archive files, found it, structural verification protocol. A code, embedding mathematical proofs into drawings using symbolic markers. If I decode these and demonstrate they prove structural integrity, we bypass independent review, I said. How long? Days? Weeks? You have 3 days before the university shuts down the project. For 3 days, we worked around the clock. 5 guild members and a dozen students, analyzing every symbol, cross-referencing with verification protocol, building mathematical models. Collaborative research in purest form, what the guild always practiced, what Blackwell always rejected. On the 3rd day, we presented findings to the president and trustees. These symbols represent structural verification proofs, I explained. My father embedded mathematical validation directly into blueprints. Every load-bearing element verified through encoded proofs that can be independently validated. I showed digital simulations. The structure performs exactly as designed under all stress conditions. The anonymous letter is demonstrably false. The president studied our analysis. Who created this protocol? The Guild, as a way of validating collaborative designs. I looked at him. My father knew his work would be challenged. He prepared verification. We've decoded what he encoded 15 years ago. The president looked at trustees. Opinions? Unusual, but mathematically sound, one said. The question is whether we gamble university reputation on controversial student project, another added. The question, Helena interjected, is whether this university values innovation or timidity. Daniel Sterling was distinguished faculty. His daughter is completing his legacy. You're considering shutting it down because one professor with a grudge manufactured doubt. Blackwell's concerns appear legitimate, the president started. Blackwell's concerns are self-serving, Marcus said. Rejected by the Guild 25 years ago, spent decades discrediting collaborative research. This is personal vendetta. The president looked uncomfortable. That's serious. Then investigate, Sarah said. Compare the anonymous letter to Blackwell's published work. You'll find stylistic similarities suggesting authorship. Silence. We'll authorize construction to continue, the president said finally. But, Miss Sterling, if this fails, consequences will extend beyond your degree. I understand. The structure won't fail. My father designed it perfectly. Construction resumed. But that night, I received an email from an unknown address. Your father's death wasn't an accident. If you complete Project Cornerstone, you'll discover why. Be careful who you trust. A friend. I stared at the screen, blood running cold. Helena had suggested my father might have been killed. Now someone was confirming it, and warning me I was in danger too. The cathedral rose over 6 months like something from another time being born into the present. Gothic flying buttresses that were also solar arrays. Stone walls with geothermal systems. Stained glass regulating light and temperature. Medieval appearance. Cutting-edge performance. Project Cornerstone. Becoming real. But I couldn't shake the warning. Your father's death wasn't an accident. I dug into circumstances around his death. Police reports, accident investigations, nothing conclusive. But I found something else. In the Guild archive, correspondence with construction companies about building Project Cornerstone. 3 firms had expressed interest. All backed out the same week. All citing unspecified regulatory concerns. I traced those companies. 2 were acquired. The 3rd merged with Blackwell Construction Group. My stomach dropped. Edmund Blackwell, whose family owned one of the region's largest construction firms. I searched deeper. Blackwell Construction had lobbied against code changes favoring sustainable Gothic revival. had funded research arguing against historical preservation, had actively suppressed the exact approaches the Guild promoted. My father's research threatened their business model. Project Cornerstone would prove sustainable Gothic revival was viable, disrupting a multi-billion-dollar industry. Had they killed him to protect profits? I couldn't prove it. But the pieces fit too perfectly. Blackwell's vendetta wasn't just academic. It was personal and financial. And if he'd had my father killed once, would he try again? I showed Helena the evidence. We need to be careful. Then we finish this project quickly and publicly. Helena interrupted. The more visible Project Cornerstone becomes, the safer you are. He can't make you disappear when hundreds are watching. We accelerated timeline, invited media coverage, made construction transparent, turned Project Cornerstone into public spectacle. By month 8, journals ran features. Environmental organizations praised innovation. Engineering societies requested documentation. Too visible to suppress. 3 months ahead of schedule, we completed construction. Final inspection by independent structural engineers. 2 weeks analyzing every aspect. Verdict: structurally sound, code compliant, performing exactly as designed. Project Cornerstone wasn't just possible, it was perfect. The dedication ceremony was held on a perfect spring morning. 500 people attended. Guild members, students, faculty, journalists, representatives from firms and organizations. Even Professor Blackwell came, standing at the back. Dean Morrison spoke first. Helena discussed collaborative research. Marcus talked innovation. Then my turn. I stood at the podium in front of the cathedral my father designed and I built. This building exists because my father believed Gothic revival wasn't about looking backward, I began. He believed it was recovering wisdom we'd lost. Understanding medieval builders solved problems we're still struggling with. I gestured behind me. Project Cornerstone proves he was right. This building generates more energy than it consumes, requires minimal climate control, will stand 500 years, cost less than conventional structures. I held up my father's seal. The compass rose. This symbol represents the Architects Guild and everything they believed, that greatest innovations come from synthesis across time, from combining historical wisdom with modern technology, from valuing collective knowledge over individual recognition. I looked at Blackwell. Some rejected that philosophy, chose competition over collaboration, spent years suppressing work proving their approach was wrong. My father died before finishing this building. I don't know if his death was truly accidental, but powerful interests wanted Project Cornerstone stopped. I held up blueprints. They failed. This building stands as testament to collaborative genius, to what becomes possible when we value truth over profit. I looked at the crowd. This is my father's legacy. But it's also a challenge. To every architect who thinks innovation means abandoning the past, Project Cornerstone proves we can move forward by looking back. The crowd applauded. One more thing, I said, pulling out a document. Last week, I filed permits for a second cathedral, and I've partnered with 6 firms licensing Project Cornerstone techniques. The Guild's research isn't staying secret. It's becoming foundation for a new approach. Professor Blackwell's face went white. The impossible, I said, is only impossible until someone proves otherwise. My father proved it in theory. I proved it in practice. Now it's transforming the industry. I stepped down, walked past Blackwell. Behind me, Helena's voice. Professor Blackwell, the Guild would like to discuss your family's firm's involvement in suppressing sustainable research, privately. I walked through the cathedral, through Gothic arches that were sustainable technology, past breathing stone walls, under light-transforming stained glass. My father's impossible dream, real, perfect. He'd told me, build what we couldn't. prove what we theorized. I'd done both, and ensured what he started would continue. 5 years later, I run the Sterling Institute for Sustainable Gothic Architecture. We've built 12 cathedral-scale structures using guild techniques, trained 300 architects, published research changing industry thinking. Professor Blackwell resigned 2 years ago. Blackwell Construction was investigated for code violation suppression, settled for substantial fines and mandatory sustainable compliance. I never proved my father was murdered, but building Project Cornerstone was justice enough, proving his work, vindicating his vision, completing his legacy. The Guild isn't secret anymore. We operate openly, sharing research, collaborating, challenging the assumption that genius is solitary. On my desk sits my father's seal, the compass rose and blueprint, symbol of everything he believed, truth preserved in symbols, not words. He was right about everything. The impossible was always just not yet. And now, not yet, is becoming right now. They said the work was stolen, until the hidden seal proved it was legacy.